The 50th wedding anniversary is often referred to as the golden anniversary, or at least that's what my married friends tell me. Well, we're not quite at 50 years yet, but we think 50 straight episodes of any podcast is worth celebrating, and we hope you do too. Welcome to episode 050 of the Pocketnow Weekly, the once-a-week podcast from Pocketnow where we discuss smartphones, tablets, and the state of mobile technology in 2013. I'm your host, Michael Fisher, editorial director at Pocketnow, and today I'm joined by the two guys who helped me kick off the Pocketnow podcast and who run the show. Editor-in-chief Brandon Miniman. Brandon, about to be a daddy, Miniman. Welcome to the show. Good morning.
Yes, you forgot to refer to me as the editor-in-beef.
Right, excuse me. Yes, I'm sorry. I apologize.
There's going to be a mini Miniman.
There is. And that third voice you heard was managing editor Anton Honorary Englishman Nodge. Good morning to you.
Cheers.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
You've been spending some time in London recently, Tony.
Yeah.
Are you tired of the place, or are you looking forward to going back?
I'm always looking forward to going back to London. It's an interesting place. I always wonder how I get back to Romania without being dead. Because look left, look right, look both ways. Then you know what? Screw this. I'm not going anywhere.
Screw it. I'm just not crossing any streets.
True. Plus the jaywalking kills me.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you don't have me there to walk you through the American art of jaywalking and crossing against signals.
People actually laughed at me when I was waiting for the light to turn green. So you can spot me from a mile away. I'm the guy that stays here and waits for the light to turn green.
Yeah. Brandon, are you going to teach your child how to jaywalk?
That's not the first thing I'm going to teach.
In the American tradition?
In New York, it's just...
oh, it's a thing. You got to do it.
You have to do it. And what usually happens is, every time I go to New York, I'm amazed at and curious as to why people are walking so fast. Everyone's walking fast. And then the light turns red, and that they walk through the light. And I'm thinking, well, hey, if this guy's going first, he gets hit first. And I just...
Yeah, you got to use him as your car sponge. Yeah.
Yes. Car sponge. I didn't know there was a term for that.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's like bullet sponge, except different. We've got one announcement to get through before we hit the thought thread, and that is that something we alluded to in the intro. This is episode 50, and so we're doing a giveaway. Woo! Yeah. There's a link in the post at Pocketnow if you're listening to this via a stream on YouTube, on YouTube or iTunes or any of those other brands.
It's like they have a choice.
I know. Well, visit the podcast post at Pocketnow, and you will find out that we are giving away an LG Optimus G. What is it, Brandon? A gently used Optimus G, is that right?
Barely used,
yeah. This is if you go back and listen to episode 28, this is the Optimus G Brandon thought he was going to use as his daily driver
I can't believe you remember.
Yeah, because we listened.
Hey, how about we make it a special edition? Is there a permanent marker to sign Brandon Miniman on it, on the back of it?
I was wondering about that. Should we get him a silver pen right away?
I don't know.
No.
Just scratch it in with something.
Yeah, just get a paper clip and just...
I'll put a dollop of blood on it, if we're going...
Yeah, pierce your pinky. But anyway, it is a like-new phone. Brandon used it for, I think, about 45 minutes before he got bored of it. And we really like it. It's been used in a number of Pocketnow pieces, so whether that improves the value or not is up to you. But the details on how to enter are on the post. Basically, all you have to do is leave us a review on iTunes for this podcast. Yes, it has to be iTunes. It can't be anywhere else just because that's the push we're doing now. And yes, iTunes giveaway equals Android phone. We know, weird. But all the details are at the link, and we are, as usual, on something of a time crunch because we all have things to do. But Brandon Miniman has not one, but two thought threads on this special day. Brandon, take it away.
Take it away. Well, the first thing is just a thought. iOS 7 Beta 2 came out, and there's something that I realized about it. In Android and Windows Phone, you get the permanent back button at the bottom of the phone, which is super convenient, especially with big screen phones, because that's a gesture. That's not a gesture. That's an action you use all the time. And it's really convenient to have it right under your thumb. In iOS, previous to iOS 7, the back button takes place in the upper left corner. of most screens. Third-party apps, first-party apps, they all have the back button all the way up there. And it's never been that big of a problem until the iPhone 5 came out, where the screen's a little bit taller. And then if you consider Apple maybe one day doing a bigger screened iPhone, which I think is a matter of when, not if, that reach gets even worse. But in iOS 7, Apple built in a gesture that allows you to swipe from the left edge of the screen to go back. And it's interesting because it's in all the first-party apps, but it's not in any of the third-party apps, obviously, because they haven't been updated, but it's part of the new API for iOS 7. And I'm just trying to extrapolate this out a little bit. If you had a bigger screened iPhone, you had all of your apps updated to take advantage of this back gesture, it really solves this problem and makes it so enjoyable to use to go back. And so my thought here is that this back gesture was introduced because we are going to get a larger screened iPhone.
You know, that's a solid possibility. I'm interested to hear what Tony feels about this, but I have always loathed the placement of the back button in iOS. I've never thought that the extreme upper left-hand corner is the place for anything aside from a signal meter. I think to put a back button up there was stupid to begin with. Yeah, it's like putting the browser navigation controls at the top of the screen on a tablet, forcing you to gorilla arm your way up there. Like, it's stupid. So I love gestures. So I think I would very much enjoy using that. Tony, what do you think?
I have no idea. I stopped predicting Apple's movements the moment I said there won't be an iPad mini. So, no thoughts here.
Smart choice. But would you like it though? Would you use a back gesture? I mean, more often than a button, or do you prefer UI buttons?
I would prefer a back gesture or something similar on the Note 2. Even though I know that the Note 2 has the back button, but it's sleeker. You know, just swipe. You don't have to move your thumb to the lower part, then up again.
Yeah, well, but it's so easy, Toner, to just pop out the S Pen, press the button, and draw an arrow. I mean, isn't that just so much more simple?
If you have a second hand you can use.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I'm sure we'll have lots of those moments again at IFA.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. And, you know, you can't talk about the back gesture without talking about BlackBerry 10 and its sort of inconsistent use of back buttons and back gestures. Speaking of which, I should mention before you get to your second thoughts, Brendan, I'm going to be talking to some of the guys at BlackBerry today. I have an interview with some of the folks responsible for BlackBerry 10's UX. We're going to talk about the Astonishing Tribe stuff. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff, so it's going to be fun. So watch for a piece on that tomorrow. Sorry to step on you, Brandon. That's some good speculation, and I think it's a foregone conclusion we'll see a larger iPhone. I am going to recklessly speculate, unlike my colleague.
Yeah, on that exact thought, Brandon's prediction is definitely valid. But what if this is a feature which is introduced by Apple just for the iPad, and of course the iPhone inherited it?
What do you mean?
So, like, they targeted it for the iPad, but the iPhone was
just like the iPad has that detection of a finger on the screen when you hold it towards the edges, and the iPhone inherited that feature. Then again, this feature might be a iPad-related feature so that you don't have to go up. You can swipe. And then, of course, since it's iOS, it's the same version. The iPhone inherited it.
You know, I don't. That's a good question. I kind of feel like it started on the iPhone first because it's just... There is a bit of a problem with the iPhone 5 and the taller screen. And on the iPad, when you use a tablet, your hands are kind of usually neutrally positioned on the sides of the tablet. And I know Michael thinks it's a gorilla jump or whatever the heck you said to go to the address bar at the top, which
gorilla
it is.
Arm, yeah.
But that's only if you're in a state of like read only on your tablet and you're kind of sitting back and you know you don't want to lift your hand too far.
Well, yeah, it's not just about lifting; it's also about like obscuring your view of what's on the screen because you can't. You have to obscure your vision to do anything at the top of the screen. I just don't think any control elements should be located at the top of a tablet screen at all.
Hey guys, before the second thread, just a quick question because I was in a cave for the past couple of days. Did you guys notice that iOS 7 has head gestures, just like Samsung, for navigating certain aspects of the OS? I think I saw a video this morning about that.
Like what?
Like, yeah, what? Like
Like you turn your head to the right to go back to the home screen, or to the left. I don't know which one it is, and then in the opposite direction to select something.
What?
What?
Yeah,
No
yeah,
way.
yeah. You can
No.
look it up. Look it up on YouTube. There's a video. I'm not sure who posted it, but I just realized it's under the accessibility options.
Are you serious? Head gestures to control your iPhone.
Head gestures.
This is from VentureBeat. Enable users to control their iPhones by moving their heads left or right. Buried in the accessibility settings, currently only intended for people who can't access iPhone's on-screen controls. Sure. Fascinating.
Yeah, but they're not calling it out just like Samsung. They're just leaving that buried there for those people who need that option for accessing their phones.
Right. Well, that's pretty amazing from an accessibility standpoint.
Whoa.
Cool.
Assistive touch. This might have been in old versions. Create new gesture. Custom gestures allow you to record gestures that can be activated from favorites in the menu. What? Okay, I'm going to make a new gesture. It's an up swipe. I'm going to save it. I'm going to call it swipe. This is weird. I've never seen this before. Okay, now what? It can be activated from favorites in the menu? What menu? What favorites? What?
Big news. Stop the pressure. Throw out the rundown. We're going to talk about this for the rest of the thing. That's pretty wild. I got distracted by another story that's Jim Cramer says that Apple's next product is a clear loser. But I'm going to stop.
Jim Cramer says that?
Yeah. I'm not going to quote any more of that article because it's making me laugh too much.
What is favorites in the menu? Can anyone help me understand where favorites are in the menu? What menu?
I'm not going to be rocking an iPhone for another few months, so I do not know.
I have an iPhone, but I'm running stock.
Oh, you guys are lame.
Yeah, and then weak. Anyway, what's shall we jump into the second thought thread?
Okay.
You ready?
Okay. Yes. I want to talk about something personal. It's potentially out of the realm of what we talk about here on a weekly basis. Ooh. It's a ritual, a thing that we all do, and we probably do it at least once a week.
I don't like the sound of it.
If not less often, maybe once a month in some cases, if, the situation doesn't present itself. I am talking about what we do as geeky people, technology enthusiasts, which is take a trip to the local technology store, whether it's a Best Buy or other. And I want to know, when you guys, just for fun, you're passing it, you got to pick something up, but you peruse anyway. I want to know what your experience is like. Like, do you go to the phones first? Do you go to the tablets first? Do you go and check on if the new 4K TV is in? How do you experience a technology store when there's new stuff? I'll pick Tony first.
For me, it's an interesting thing. I don't do that here in my city, but I always do that when I'm abroad. And Michael can testify to this. When we were in Berlin and Barcelona last year, we spent like hours in a superstore and regardless, we start with TVs or CD players or anything. We always end up at phones and we're comparing prices and, oh, look, they got this. No, we don't have it, but we do. So yeah, it's always an experience to see what other markets have.
Yeah, that is always fun, right? Because it's the same shelves, it's the same kind of decor in the store. Like, all these stores are the same, whether it's a Saturn in Berlin or a Best Buy in, Boston. Like, it's really, really easy to tell when you're in a big box electronics retailer. But the phones on the shelves are different. It's like, oh, wow, the TVS is here? This is cool. I've never seen this, whatever. So, yeah, I don't know. But Tony, you don't have any in Aradia?
Yeah, we do, but I know them by heart now.
Oh, you just never go. Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. It used to be so exciting for me back in 2002, 2003, when I was first getting into mobile technology as just a hobby, to go into a Radio Shack and see what new stuff they have. What do you got that's new? And, just check out the first camera phones hitting the market or whatever. But now that we know everything, and not just working for Pocketnow, like ever since I started reading forums 10 years ago, now that you know what's coming down the pipe, it's such a anticlimactic experience to walk into a Radio Shack, instantly know that you know more than the guy behind the counter. No offense to anybody who's working at Radio Shack now.
And
you know what I mean?
And you ever get an experience? I mean, this is part of it, where you get a salesman come up to you and they start to talk to you about the merits of like a certain platform, and you're like, you're like, actually, and sometimes like what they're saying doesn't make any sense, and you just want to be like, I'm a professional phone reviewer, and what you're saying is incorrect, and you should be fired.
Yeah.
It's just so funny when that happens, isn't it?
And it is, and it happens frequently too. I had a go ahead, Tony.
No, I was about to say to you guys, because throughout all Europe where I went either on business trips or vacations, and where I visited such stores, nobody just gives a damn about you, and even you'll have to wait like 10 or 15 minutes to find somebody to talk to. So
So funny.
they just don't care.
Well, it's like the waiter thing when Tony and I are out eating, and I'm like, loath to raise my hand or even like eye contact is the most I'll do to get a waiter over, because in America, like snapping for a waiter or something is really rude. But Tony's like, no, you really got to flag them down. They don't care about you unless you shoot a flare off. And I'm like, oh,
No, they don't want to bother you.
right. That's it. Yeah.
It's so interesting in how that's different. Like in the U.S., it's offensive if they don't come over every 5 seconds and ask if you want
I'd
something.
be offended if he came over. Come on, man, I'm still chewing.
Yeah.
It's so funny. When I was in Barcelona, I remember like me and my wife, we went to this tapas restaurant, and like we thought the service was so terrible because this guy just like left us and wouldn't come back, and we were like, our sangria pitcher, it's empty. What the? Bring us a new and
Why
like
is this
that.
not automatically refilled? What's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And eventually we realized you have to poke them or clap or do something that would seem derogatory around here. But
Right. Yeah, no, it's amazing. And actually, bring it back to electronics retail, when I was at Nextel, I think there was some kind of rule. It was like, if in my particular store, if somebody didn't come in the door, if somebody came in the door and they weren't greeted within, I don't know, 15 seconds, it was a real big problem. Like, people needed to be greeted right away, and you needed to make sure that they knew that you knew they were there. Which I think
you
was
are
great.
correct. You are correct, because a small correction to whatever I said, it's valid unless you go to an Apple store. And the Apple store, regardless if it's in Europe or in the US, it's the same. People come up to you, want to help you, give you information.
Yeah.
But Apple aside, nobody gives a damn.
Yeah, so it's wild stuff. I love going into an Apple stores for that reason, because when you go into a Best Buy, in my case, I've never really been in, and Taylor, I wish Taylor was on the show to discuss his experience as a Best Buy employee, but I've almost never been in a situation where I've had a good time at Best Buy, or I've dealt with really informed people, at least in mobile. But that throws off your perception of the rest of the store too, right? Because if you're talking to the guy in the cell phone section, he's trying to tell you that, I don't know, that a BlackBerry Q10 runs Windows Phone. Like, it's like, oh, okay, well, thanks for your help. And then you go to another part of the store and you're talking to another guy about TVs. And I don't know anything about TVs. He could be telling me anything, and it just shatters my trust in the place. And that doesn't happen in an Apple store, generally speaking. And generally, when I'm talking to an Apple employee, they're like, "Yeah, I know I know my stuff, and here's some information." And then I'll go and verify that, and I'm like, "Wow, no, you are correct. You are well trained, and you're friendly, and wow, what a great retail experience." So yeah, thanks for reminding me about the Apple Store, Tony, because Radio Shack, Best Buy, and all the other ones that are now dead, like Circuit City and Staples, which I guess is not doing very well.
CompUSA.
Oh, CompUSA.
CompUSA was awesome because that's the only place you could go and see like every video card that has ever been created back in the day when when there were a lot of differences between them and they weren't so cheap.
Now there's still Micro Center is still around, but I've never been in one. So maybe I just surrendered some nerd cred, but that's a really good question. We should have a day. We should have like a video series where we just, each one of us in each of our respective cities goes into an electronics retailer and tallies up all of the missteps or awesome points.
I mean, it's so funny because what's changed is that these stores used to be for these, the geeks, and it's become like a consumer center, right? Where there are middle-aged people and older people coming to get their new phones, and they're looking at all of the different tablets and they're confused, and it's just been consumerized, and there's misinformation, and it's just it's become such a funny experience.
Yeah.
To go back to what I was saying, so I went to my local Best Buy recently, and I went to the phone section first, of course, because some of the phones I haven't played with yet, and there weren't any there at the time. So then I noticed the Samsung Experience Store, which is a new thing that Best Buy is doing, where it's essentially a copy of the Apple Store within Best Buy, literally on the with 5 feet away from it, and so
Samsung does not copy.
yeah, it was, what's the word when it's like ironic? It was ironic.
Yeah,
because
there you go.
Because here's a company that basically profited from copying Apple in the beginning, and now they're doing it again by putting this store. And they're kind of making Apple look bad because Samsung's got the cameras, they've got tablets and smartphones and all these cool things, and it's white. It's lots of white, just like the Apple Store. And then there's a dedicated guy behind the counter who inevitably comes up to you and says, "Hey, have you checked out the new Galaxy Note 8.0?" And I say, "Oh no, just looking." You got to try to sound disinterested as possible to get them to go the hell away from you.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. No, I'm just looking around. Thank you. Just wasting time.
Just browsing, and then yeah. So they had the Galaxy Note 8.0, but what happens is that most of these devices aren't connected to Wi-Fi, so it's like you can't even experience them over the internet.
That whole that whole side of the experience is broken, because like you pick up a product to use and it's like, oh wow, they have live demos. It's not a cardboard screen. It's not a dummy. And then you try and use it, and either the store's Wi-Fi is broken or some customer has messed up.
You can go through the menus, man.
Right, I know, but but that's us, right? I mean, I just think of the plight of the regular consumer coming in here and being like, how do I work this? Somebody, and I think the retail experience is broken in electronics in a lot of ways, and the misinformation that you cite, Brandon, goes all the way back to like training. I remember going to a carrier was sponsoring some training for third-party salespeople in 2004 or something like that, and I went, and I'm not going to say the carrier because it was hilarious, but it was a GSM carrier, and somebody asked a question, because back then the debate was not so much like Samsung versus Apple or whatever, but on the carrier side it was GSM versus CDMA, and somebody was like, why should I sell you guys over a CDMA carrier? Like, what's the technical advantage? And the trainer, the corporate person from this carrier, from this GSM carrier, who was hired to do this job, spent about 3 minutes explaining how because CDMA uses a staggered frequency hopping approach, bits can fall out. Ones and zeros can fall out of the stream as though it were some kind of river in the air, and ones and zeros were plummeting from it. And in GSM, that didn't happen. And then I watched the reaction on this guy's face, who was like, "Oh, okay,
whoa, double rainbow,
yeah,
dude.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense." And I'm like, "Oh, they just made another misinformation carrier." No.
You know what's also crazy is the lag at which information is disseminated in a technology store, or even in society in general. Like, what happens is a new version of Android comes out, a new version of iOS comes out, and we find out about it as it's happening, and our readers find out about it as it's happening because they're obsessed with this stuff. But everyone out there in the world are still talking about the version before the last version that came out, and it's like maddening. My brother has an iPhone 5, and I'm like, "Hey, John, the iOS 7, what do you think about it?" And he doesn't. It doesn't, like, I'm expecting his eyes to pop out of his head, like, "Oh my goodness, a new user experience," but he looks at me like I've crazy.
Yeah, no, it is true. There's a significant disconnect there, and it's funny. I feel like there's so much there to mine. There's so much there in that experience, in that disconnect between the world that we inhabit every day and the world that the rest of the planet enjoys. And it's something that I think we do a pretty good job of keeping in mind when we're talking to regular consumers, when we're addressing an audience. But man, we could have a whole show about this. This was a good thought thread, man. Good thinking. I would like to have a premium retail store that I walk into, and not just Apple products, but everything. And like, oh, you're going to take care of me because you only staff this with knowledgeable people, and you don't try and do everything, and you're not out of your depth. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, it would be nice. I don't know if this thought thread went as well as I thought of. I was just in the Best Buy the other day, and I'm like, gosh, I really feel like a kid in a candy store right now. This is like a ritual for me. I go and I see exactly the same things. I found the Sony. They had a Sony 4K TV, and like it was like a 16-year-old driving for the first time. I just stood in front of it, like 1 foot away, with my mouth on the floor, just staring at this incredible, because it's so rare to walk into a technology store and see something that is so very rare that you haven't really seen before. And, we were at CES and we saw the 4K TVs, but to have it like in front of you, you can actually like stand in front of it without a crowd behind you. It's totally different. And gosh, I don't know. I just wanted to talk about it. Anyway, let's move on.
You can talk about no. There's that element too of that kid in the candy store thing. Like when I go home, I can't talk today because this coffee is so cold. It's numbing my mouth. I'm sorry, but whenever I go home to rural Long Island, New York, I'm like I make an excuse to drag whatever family member I'm with to the Best Buy. Not because I like Best Buy, but because I got to get that technology fix in some way that I can't get when I'm away from the office and away from my 14 million loaner phones. So.
Do you ever try to take your girlfriend to the Best Buy and or the technology store and she's like, "This is the lamest shit ever"?
Not my current girlfriend. I've definitely had girlfriends where it's like, "All right, you're gonna go somewhere else, and I know you don't care about this, but just leave me alone in my bath of glowing blue screens, and it'll be great." I wonder what's the that's a thought thread for another week. What's the next futuristic LED color? Because, blue's had a good run. We've had 10 years of blue being a futuristic keyboard backlight. Let's change it up. Shall we talk about Android?
Talk about Android.
Boom. Google Play Edition, Galaxy S4 and HTC One are up for pre-order. How about that?
How about
was that a meh, Tony?
Yeah.
I inexplicably feel the same way. I get, and we've talked about this enough, so we don't have to kind of like dwell on this. I just wanted to note that they were out. And yes, we'll get our hands on them at some point. But yeah, I agree. Like, the skin is a part of the experience on either of those devices, on each of those devices.
I mean, I would be much more likely to buy the Galaxy S4 stock edition. I wouldn't buy either because I would buy the carrier subsidized version and root it. And now that the source code is out, you can get the exact same ROM on your phone without paying the premium. But I don't like TouchWiz, but I do like Sense. I think Sense adds to the experience. TouchWiz detracts from it at this point.
Unless so I would get about the camera. Yeah.
Well, I wrote a piece, I'm not sure when or which piece, but I think I said the exact same following thing. The HTC One is an HTC One because of Sense, and the same way the S4 is an S4 because of TouchWiz. Else, they're just phones.
Right. And, what's interesting about it, and I didn't put the link in here, is that they're running... What did Stephen's post say about this? They're not actually running Nexus ROMs. Like the kernel is coming from the manufacturer. No, what's coming from the manufacturer? Somebody save me from my wave of.
There are a couple of tweaks because, of course, HTC One has Beats Audio and all the camera tweaks, or at least some of them are included. But you know what? The interesting thing is that I just read a report that the Samsung Galaxy S4 Google Edition will not get its updates from Google.
Yeah, so it is. It's the kernel issue here. Yeah. They run mostly stock Android, but they're doing some Linux kernels provided by the OEMs, and
true.
That is right, Tony. That is why their HTC can fit Beats in there still without That's not a skin level thing; it's a kernel level thing.
All this kernel talk's making me want a bag of popcorn. I don't know about you guys.
Bring in a little Jiffy Pop sound effect there. Yeah,
but so I guess the question is, if you guys were just buying a phone for, you need a new phone, would you pay this premium to get these versions?
Well, before you guys answer, let me just say this: it's not a premium. It's a premium for those guys or girls who buy their phones on a contract, like most of the US people. Here in Europe or in my region, or people like me who always buy phones unlocked, it's not a premium at all. So it's basically buying a $650 Galaxy S4 versus a $199.99 S4 from AT&T.
Right.
That's where you see the premium. But else, if you buy them unlocked, they're approximately at the same, give or take a couple of bucks.
Yeah, I guess you could look at it that way. And the fact that they're unlocked means that the resale value is going to be higher.
Yeah, well, that's true too. And there's a certain degree of, I don't know, there's a cachet that these devices have by being Google Play devices. They're not quite Nexuses, But they are phones that not too long ago we didn't think existed, or we thought that they were, they were just vaporware, and now they exist. So yeah, that might up the resale value some. I don't know. They're out there. They're available for pre-order. They're shipping soon. You should get them. We have relationships with the manufacturers, closer relationships with the manufacturers than we do with Google itself. So once the manufacturers get around to sending out demos, we will snag those. I think what did we think? The most of those hands-ons came from Google, Brandon?
Yeah, it looks that way.
Yeah. So
another small thing to consider before we move on is that these devices are going to be slightly faster and have slightly better battery life than the versions from the OEMs.
But
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, because according to some comments, I think Anand Tech found the opposite.
What?
Yeah, that the Galaxy S4 Google Play Edition has inferior performance. That's according to a comment, though. That is not. You shouldn't take that as fact. That is just what I read.
Yeah. So we're not sure about that. We'll check it out. But what I want to ask you guys, you remember that rumor that HTC might at one point make the Google Edition ROM available for stock HTC One users?
They're not. How would they possibly do that? Like have a settings that says restore to factory?
No. Like on HTC Dev, have a ROM with lots of disclaimers popping up and making it available for your phone. And then in another section, you can revert.
I mean, they're pretty much there, right? You can unlock your phone on HTC Dev, and then the source, the actual ROM is out there now. So, I mean, I guess they've indirectly done it, and maybe they'll launch a new page on HTC Dev for instructions to make it like an official thing.
I would definitely flash that for a week and then probably move back to Sense. But from what I'm hearing, the new stock version of HTC Sense on the new upcoming HTC One ROM...
The Sense 5.1?
I'm not sure if it's 5.1 or 5.0 on steroids, but I'm hearing that it should be awesome.
What is
whenever
awesome
that comes out.
What do you mean?
I'll let you know whenever I'll get that.
All right.
There are degrees of awesome, and I'm just curious if this is a high degree?
Yeah,
after my hands on.
Evaluate the awesome after the hands on. Let's talk about a brand we haven't talked much about because HTC and Samsung certainly see their share of exposure on the Pocketnow Weekly, and I want to talk about Motorola for a second because we've seen a brand tweak, and you guys
finally,
you guys know how amped I get about branding, and like it hadn't occurred to me that for over 10 years Motorola's been working with the same italicized all caps, bold-faced branding, which is like, we're going to hit you in the face with awesome Motorola and hello, Moto, and, red and black and just, nasty, mean, cool colors. And now we have the first indication that they are going to acknowledge their kind of Google ownership.
Their playfulness.
Yeah, it's weird. How do we feel about this? What we have, obviously the link is in the post, as always, listeners. But this is a much more modern take on stuff. We have a much more approachable all lowercase Motorola Word.
It's lowercase. It's sans serif. What?
Yeah, and it's underneath. It says a Google company. But how about that logo?
So there are several. There's one with the rainbow colors, and there's one with the purple.
Right. So the purple one is the simpler one. They've just replaced the red with purple, and it's the usual Motorola Batwing thing in the middle. But the other one is interesting because it's a gray Batwing logo surrounded by a ring of broken up rainbow colors, which evokes Google, doesn't it?
This is an interesting blend of the old and the new because they kept the Batwings, which is, I think, Motorola is one of the oldest companies in the tech industry, and the colors are just, it's playful. It's like, this is different. This is a little bit less serious, I guess.
Yeah, or like, I don't know if less serious is what it is, but it's certainly less it's less bold. Yeah, oddly it's less corporate, even though Google is a massive corporation. I'm not sure I'm sold on the multicolored ring around the gray Batwing thing. Tony, what do you think about it?
Do you want me to put on my European hat or my American Pocketnow managing editor hat?
Actually, I would like you to put on your Australian hat.
Yeah, I want your fez on for this one.
It doesn't work that way.
But you keep your European hat on. I want to hear your style opinion.
I don't care about Motorola.
Oh, sure, of course. But no, you say you care about branding for a second. What do you think about that? Would you be more
I
or
don't
less
care
likely to
about
buy a
anything
phone?
Motorola related because Motorola did its best to not be present on the market here in Europe, especially specifically in this region where I'm in. You guys need to know that whenever I go to IFA or MWC, I can't wait to get my hands on the last year's Motorola, the Atrix, because I don't see that here. So they're not here. I haven't seen them. I haven't actually held a Motorola phone in my life, so I couldn't care less about Motorola. Now, if I put my other hat on, I think that this logo and this rebranding is more modest. It means less to me as a future possible owner than the previous one. It's because it's not in your face. It's not ballsy. It's just a slight modest logo that we are a colorful, playful company which is owned by Google now. So we don't really have our own mind.
Yeah. I think that lack of boldness, I think you're right. I think that's what this certainly says. And obviously that's the obvious way to go because, right, it's sans serif. It's not all caps. It's not italicized. It's not a big stamp. But I don't know. I appreciate modernization when it happens. And I think this is certainly a more bold step than we've seen with other mergers before. Like
Michael, I think it's not modernization. I think it's simplification.
Well, I think simplification is modernization.
Yeah,
if you're thinking Windows Phone, yeah.
So what about this X phone taking high res? What is this? Widescreen high res shots.
Yeah, so in addition,
mean?
That's the second part of the Motorola news for the day. The first phone, presumably the first phone to bear this new branding, is going to be this Moto X, and we'll talk about another possibility for a name in a second. But yeah, we got a leaked sample image from, not sure, this came to us from Phone
Picasa.
Arena. Yeah?
The source is Picasa and the Via is Phone Arena.
Oh, thank you. I thought you said, hey guys, not Picasa. Yes, so that's where it came from, and it looks like this is a widescreen RAW photo. So we've talked about this a lot on the show. I'm dealing with it right now with the Galaxy S4 Active and the Galaxy S4 because I'm using them side by side. If you set those phones to full resolution, you are not going to be cropped to a 16:9 aspect ratio. You're going to be at 4:3. Or if you're on the BlackBerry Q10 and you're full resolution, you're going to be at 1:1. So you're getting square or nearly square photos, which I don't like as much. And I don't know, I must be the only one because I'm the only one who ever talks about this, but I can't stand that. I like my photos to be widescreen. And if you want to take a downsize in the resolution, you can do that. You can crop it, but then, of course, you're losing some information. But the thing is, this leaked image from this Moto X, presumably from this Moto X, is a full 10-megapixel image that is already in widescreen. So that means what? The sensor size is a different shape, right?
Exactly. No, the sensor size is larger. And this brings me to an article which I wrote, I think, last year about the PureView technology. And the 808 takes either 4:3 mode pictures in 38 megapixel mode or 16:9 pictures in 34 megapixel mode. So imagine the sensor as a circle. I'll write a post about it. I can't explain this.
We need to write another post about that.
Yeah.
The main thing is...
The key takeaway is that the Motorola X, the alleged Motorola X, definitely has at least a 14 megapixel sensor to be able to produce 10 megapixel widescreen images.
Right, but the end result will be a 10-megapixel image, right? So
yes, but there will be probably a point where you can set 4:3 aspect ratio, in which case it will generate larger 13-point-something megapixel images.
And I never want to see another 4:3 photo. I'm just so I don't know what it is. Do you guys feel this? Am I the only one who feels this way? Do you, Brandon, do you like widescreen photos or do you like square photos better?
It depends what I'm viewing it on. When I'm in Apple mode, I like 4:3 because the iPad's 4:3, and that's where I view the photos. I guess if I'm in an Android mode, it's okay to have widescreen because most Android tablets are widescreen.
But the iPhone 5 isn't 4:3, right?
It takes pictures in 4:3.
Yeah, but then when you're displaying it, don't you get black bars or something?
Yeah, you do get black bars, and it looks like crap on the iPhone. But
right. It's like watching a video shot in portrait just makes my skin crawl. Yeah, Tony?
So on this podcast, there's this guy who tells me that he cannot stand seeing 4:3 pictures. The same guy who loves square 1:1 pictures.
Those are 1:1s. Those are on Instagram. See, it's different. No, see, I put up with those. I've never liked that about Instagram. I put up with it, but I that's an aesthetic thing. Anyway, That's the Moto X camera rumor. That was the most confusing conversation I've ever had.
I'll write the weekend post, I promise.
Yeah, that sounds good. The name might not be Moto X, though. This new Motorola phone that we've been talking about for months and months, or series of phones, might actually be called the Ultra series. Ultra.
That's interesting. That's the first time I'm hearing about this. Of course, I'm out of my cave. But the press release after the All Things D conference, where the CEO went on record and stated it will be available this summer, then it was followed by a press release, and the press release refers to the phone as the Moto X.
Was it a legit press release?
Yeah, coming from Motorola. Yeah, I can find it too.
Interesting.
Hold on. You just talk while I search.
So Moto X makes more sense to me if we're talking about this 10-megapixel camera sample as being legit, because if they're going to use the camera as a selling point, which they should be, X and 10, I could see how that would get along, and I'm sure the marketing people are going to have a great time with that. Ultra seems like a more generic name to me. Ultra is not a... Well, hold on a second. X is pretty generic, too. I don't know. Maybe these are tied in their unassumingness. You know what I mean?
Maybe this will correspond to the new album from DMX.
Hey, yeah. Maybe it'll exclusively be available on the Motorola phone, like that Jay-Z album on Samsung devices.
But that Jay-Z thing is brilliant for Samsung, by the way.
Yeah,
it's a brilliant marketing stunt.
It is. It's a marketing stunt. Is it brilliant?
It helps Jay-Z and it helps Samsung. I mean, what else could you want? And in a way, it kind of benefits the consumer a little bit. Although
the consumer of Samsung products.
Well, yeah. So if you download that app on any Android phone, it doesn't work. It has to be Samsung phone.
Think so. I don't.
GS3, GS4, and Note 2, I think.
Is that what it is? Yeah. I don't know. I don't listen to Jay-Z, so I could not care less. I never read any of those pieces, and then when the news went away, I was happy.
Jay-Z would have a lot to teach you, Michael.
I understand he only has the nicest things to say about me, so I should probably keep my mouth.
So, I just sent you guys the press
so
release.
Tony just sent me the press release. I can't load the page, actually.
Load my post.
What?
Load my post.
You take that back, and you take a more polite tone with me.
That's a funny thing to say.
That's a funny thing to say. I've never heard anyone say
I'm gonna tell my wife to load my post.
Get over here and load my post. Oh, that's
one day we'll have a podcast in either Romanian, Hungarian, German, Italian, Spanish, or French, and then I'm gonna laugh my ass off at you guys.
No. You didn't. Actually, you phrased it perfectly. It's just I've just never heard it said.
So the phone's official name is Moto X,
really?
as per the press release. Yes.
All right. So that might be the X. We might still see a series of other phones called the Ultra series to replace the somewhat played out Droid brand, but we'll have to see what goes on with that. I don't want to spend any more time on Motorola until we have some firm stuff going on, but I was most excited to see that branding stuff. I think it's nice to see Google finally doing something with their acquisition other than
you were referring to the Droid Ultra.
Yeah. Why? What did you think I was referring to?
The X.
I was, but then we started talking about the Ultra. We did that thing where time moved forward, and then we went to the next topic. It was so smooth.
And I'm still stuck in the past.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's move on. My ADD is getting the best of me.
Galaxy Note 3 might arrive with an LCD screen. I don't like it. How do you guys feel?
Pause.
There was your segue.
You know, guys. I love LCD. I rephrase. I prefer LCD screens over Super AMOLEDs, at least until Samsung or any Super AMOLED screen or AMOLED screen manufacturer, aside from Nokia, makes them clearly visible in direct sunlight.
I don't know, man. I can't see the difference when I'm out in.
You have the Active, and you have
I have the Active, and I have the S4. Yeah, and
compare them.
I'll be doing it again, but I gotta tell you, if the sun's bright enough, it's going to wash out both of them. The LCD doesn't matter at all because it's so glossy on the glass that it just and for me the trade-off isn't worth it. I hate firing up a phone that has an LCD on it, and when they have that black the screen right before the splash screen when the display just activates, and that backlight is shining through those pixels, and it's supposed to be black, but it's that gray. I can't stand it. I really, really like AMOLED, even though it's not as accurate. It's tackier because of that higher color saturation. I don't mind that.
Unless you have an HTC One.
Well, the SLCD panel on that is good, but even then, you power on the one, and you see it. Like I just don't like blacks that aren't really black. I feel like if AMOLED is out there and we're kind of past the pentile discussion, I think it's the better technology. But
you like truth, Michael.
No, if I liked truth, I would like LCDs. I like truth in black. I like truth in black levels on displays. Yes, you're right. You're right.
Then you will love the screen on the Lumia 925. I think that's the best AMOLED screen I have ever seen.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I did read. I didn't read your whole review, but I skimmed it and I watched your video, which I loved. But that the colors are not too blown out for you.
No, you can actually customize the color temperature, the saturation, and everything according to your needs.
Right, that's right. Yeah, that's awesome.
But the stock version works just well.
Well, as soon as I see it, I will be excited about it. And speaking of that display disparity, the Galaxy S4 Active review will be up shortly after this podcast goes up.
And you guys listening, you got to see this video. Michael did some really fun stuff in the video of the Active. I think he let his creativity run wild. I think it was a very good video. It's a must see. It really is.
Thank you, sir.
No spoilers.
Yeah, just suffice to say, there's a steamy scene between the S4 Active and myself. But yeah, we get some slow mo in there, and we get a lot of water action, which is to be expected. So check it out. The review will go up today. The Windows Phone category is beckoning to us, gentlemen. Shall we jump platforms?
Please.
Yeah, let's upgrade. No, that's actually a Microsoft a quote. I wrote a post this morning about Microsoft saying that allegedly 23% of new Windows Phone acquisitions were upgrades from Android.
Yeah, so I was going to put that in here, but I couldn't really decipher the headline, and then something distracted me, as it always does. But what is the story there, Tony? They have some metrics claiming to indicate where people are coming from. What are they taking surveys at point of sale or something like that?
I'm not sure exactly. That was the opening speech at the Build conference regarding Windows Phone, and according to them, 42% of new Windows Phone device acquisitions are coming from feature phones, which is understandable and is normal. And there are 4 billion feature phones out there, so Microsoft still has a huge market chance here. But the interesting bit was at the end of the slide, saying, and I quote, 23% of Windows Phone devices were bought by users upgrading from Android. Now, of course, if you upgrade from your, I don't know, Honeycomb that's tablet, 2 point something, that's
Froyo,
probably an upgrade.
Yeah,
exactly. But would you upgrade your S4 for a insert Windows Phone name here? Yeah, that's not really an upgrade.
No, I think you can. I absolutely, I think you can. I mean, it just depends on what features are important to you. If you decide, you can call anything an upgrade. If you upgrade from a Samsung Galaxy S4 to like a Texas Instruments calculator and a dumb phone that's tethered to the wall, if that's going to make your life better, then that's an upgrade. I mean, I think it's a word choice thing, but there's definitely stuff that Windows Phone can do that Android cannot.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, and I'm not debating that. I'm just saying that if you have an Android phone, chances are you have all the Google services installed and using them. And once you switch to Windows Phone, you can say bye-bye.
Yeah, well, that's a big hit, and that's something that I, of course, can't stand. But is that... I don't know, is that true? Can we say that? Or just because so many people are buying Android phones, Android is such a massive mover in the market that I think that there are probably swaths of millions of people who don't heavily use Google services, and probably a subset of those who don't even know that Google has anything to do with Android, even now. I feel like there's a lot of... I'm thinking of people like my parents' friends who buy Galaxy S2s from AT&T at a discounted price and then put on their MSN email on there, like that kind of thing.
Yahoo Mail.
Yeah, right, exactly. Comcast. So, I don't know. But I think that's pretty cool. I think if that metric is accurate, then 23% of users jumping from Android to Windows Phone, that's pretty impressive.
23% of Windows phones bought. So not 23% of Android user
I'm
base.
sorry. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
It's a huge difference.
Yeah. A quarter of the Android user base is going to Windows.
Yeah, whoa.
Stop the presses. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's not in the rundown. Sorry, I might try and throw that in. The big news for me was we'll get to device news in a second, but we can't stop talking about the EOS because as we get closer and closer to the event, more stuff starts to leak out. We might have this. I feel like this is the podcast about name changes. So this is coming to us from EvLeaks on Twitter, and it might arrive as the Nokia Lumia 1020.
And that's not even sure now. Because the next topic on the rundown might be the new name.
Right, which is, go ahead and say it. What is it? Oh,
Nokia Zoom.
Nokia Zoom trademark is under examination. Now, is that the more recent story, Tony? That's yours?
That's a story from this morning, yes.
Okay, so who knows what they're going to do now?
So there was the EOS, then there was the Elvis code name, then there was the 1020, and now we have the Zoom.
Right, and
I'm just wondering. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, Zoom makes a degree of sense to me, right? Because that's what they're going to be playing up, and they're going to be talking about the optical zoom capabilities on this thing.
And it's on the invite.
And, right, exactly. It's the Nokia Zoom event on July 11th. So that makes more sense to me. 1020, to me, recalls... I understand the progression from 920 to 1020, but 1020 to me recalls the days of, like, the Nokia 3390. Mm-hmm. It makes me think of a Nokia dumb phone, and I don't think that's where they want brains to be going.
I mean, no one's thinking that except people that know the history of the company.
Well, that's a very good point. I
mean, for me, 1020 sounds like a pretty high number, and it seems like there's something special there.
Like, for me, like, 1,000 feels like a really high number. Like, 1020 to me is like, okay, what? Is that a printer? You know what I mean? I don't know.
The Zoom feels right, but there's something fishy about that. Nokia is not going to ditch the Lumia brand. The Lumia speaks Windows Phone, and it's not trademarked as Nokia Lumia Zoom, but just Nokia Zoom. So I'm thinking that either they want to separately place this product in their portfolio and address that to a specific target. Yeah, it runs Windows Phone, among other things, but the big thing is Zoom, or they will just change the trademark or change the name to Nokia Lumia Zoom.
Yeah, or it's just a feature. You know, it's like the new Lumia 1020 with Nokia Zoom, and then they're going to spend a half hour talking about Nokia Zoom.
It might be a camera lens.
Right.
Nokia, just like Nokia Smart Camera, Nokia Zoom.
Right, yeah. There's, when these questions finally get answered, what are we going to talk about? We're going to have 20-minute podcasts.
We're going to talk about pop culture and Paula Deen and
and Kanye's baby. That's what we're going to talk about.
Northwest. I like that name. Come on. I mean, I get it. You know, when you make a name for a baby, this is a big decision. You got to think ahead. You got to make.
Do you have a name yet?
Yes.
Is it public? Is it public information?
No.
It's a secret.
I know it.
I think I know it too, but damn.
Okay, then that's enough.
I forgot.
Okay, I'll tell you. It's Minnie, so her name will be Minnie Man.
That's my trademark.
That's perfect. Well, I am looking forward to hearing the official word.
So, can we talk about this second device to have boom sound, which is a Windows phone?
This is the last piece of news on the rundown, and I am excited to talk about it. Please, yes.
I woke up to this, and I did not expect it to happen. And boom sound is fascinating to me because it's something so obvious, yet it is huge for HTC. They got to the market first with this feature that we needed for years now because of crappy phone audio. And the great thing about boom sound is that now when Samsung next year comes out with dual front-facing speakers, everyone's going to be like, you copied that from HTC. And so when Samsung comes out next year with a phone that has dual front speakers, people will think HTC was the originator of that. And it's interesting to see how they're doing boom sound with different designs.
Right. What's great is that I feel like this is taking a page right out of our fanboy dreams, because I spent a long time when the 8S was announced talking about how much I love the 8S design, and I wish they would port that cool dual tone color scheme.
But this isn't dual tone. Do we see other colors with the dual tone?
Yeah, it's purple with lighter purple, neon blue.
It's not dual tone, bro.
Yeah,
that's the
is.
same. Okay, it's technically dual tone.
Yeah.
I'm talking about two different colors. You know.
Oh no, that's whack.
Oh, the tennis ball and thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, tennis ball.
Well, the tennis ball was pretty cool.
Are they doing only purple here, or are they doing tennis ball?
While you're looking at that, I'm gonna just first say this, Brandon. Samsung, I think, was the first to come out with the front-facing dual speakers on a tablet and on their Galaxy Player. So just that,
on the Galaxy Player.
Yeah, that 5.8 thing. That's a good.
Who are you calling a player? All right, which one? Galaxy Player.
Android powered MP3 player, whatever. And the main thing I want to say is that I think am I the only one who looks at this render and finds it fishy? I'm not saying that this is not an official render. I mean, the HTC One has symmetrical top and bottom speakers.
Yeah.
This HTC 8 XT has a large speaker on the top and a smaller one on the bottom. Of course, the physical dimensions of the speaker might be the same, so that's a design thing. And if you zoom in and look at the bottom of the phone, either the Windows logo or the speaker are not centered.
Oh yeah, the Windows logo is off to the right a little bit.
And also, you might be in a situation where you're pressing the home button or something, or you're accidentally covering up that speaker grill because it's so close to an actual button.
Right, because the lower speaker is the smaller of the two. You could easily cover that up with the thumb.
You know what's interesting is that on the HTC One, the top grill and the bottom grill for boom sound are exactly the same to create this symmetry. But the truth is that the speaker within, on the bottom, I don't know about the top, only takes up about half the grill. And so the other half is just for aesthetics. Mm-hmm. And so the 8XT kind of looks and feels weird because it's like, why didn't they just stretch that and make it the same length as the grill above?
Do I have to balance it to the right or to the left? Is it stronger on the left or on the right?
Yeah. Right, yeah, I agree. It creates the mental disconnect that doesn't look very good. Certainly it isn't as exciting looking as the One. But, you know, we'll see how it performs. We're definitely going to get a review unit on this. That looks exciting. And it's not the only phone that Sprint is getting. They are also going to be snapping up the Samsung Ativ S Neo, also known as
straight from Matrix,
also known as the Samsung Ativ S, with a CDMA radio.
So the Neo means...
So the Neo means that Sprint wanted a more current name for this phone that's now, 8 months old or 7 months old?
And that's exactly what Neo means in different languages.
Neo means new.
Right, yeah. So the only differences that I'm seeing here, if I'm getting this right, because I reviewed the Ativ S and I liked it, actually. I liked it. I gave it a higher score than the Lumia 920 because of its expandability and its utility, but the Ativ S Neo... really looks like an Ativ S with nothing else changed about it, except for a Sprint logo and a Sprint's LTE bands and so on. We've got 2,000 milliamp hour non-removable battery, 1 gig of RAM, micro SD, and almost $150 on a contract, which I think is too much.
Now, guys, when I look at this thing, and you know, I like the Ativ S, and I played with it, and it took forever for it to come out to the U.S. I look at this phone and I think it's one of the ugliest phones I've ever seen in my life. What about you guys?
No, come on, it's the Galaxy. It's the Galaxy S3, man.
But the Galaxy S3 has this nice roundedness to it, but this has these really rounded square edges, and then the home button has this
and the most awesome battery cover.
Yeah,
ever.
That fake metal is incredible looking.
And Hyperlays were not.
Right, no, it really is. It sounds like I'm being facetious, but that fake metal is so incredible to behold with your eyeballs.
Now, Michael, what is the difference between the word sarcastic and facetious?
One of them has the word face in it. Your etymology lesson.
You would make a great English teacher.
Thanks, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. Maybe that's what I'll do when I get tired of talking about the Ativ S Neo. I don't know.
You dirty old man.
You know what sucks about this 8XT is that one of the coolest parts about Boom Sound is where you can use it. And I use YouTube all the time, and Windows Phone still doesn't have an official YouTube app.
Well, they did.
It will soon.
They did. And it got pulled, and now they're working on it again. And if you were crafty like me and you didn't update your YouTube app, which pulled it from the phone, you can still have it. So my Lumia 920 still has the awesome YouTube app that Microsoft made, which lets you download videos and do a bunch of fun stuff. So,
but you know what really sucks about this HTC 8XT?
What?
the WVGA screen. I mean, come on.
So good point.
2013.
What?
We did gloss over that. I'm sorry. Yeah.
What? No. Oh no.
Did I
Yeah.
burst your bubble, Brandon?
Yeah, 4.3-inch WVGA. What?
It's 480 by 800.
480 by 800, yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I had no idea. I want to take back every good thing I said about this phone.
So that really sucks, because that means that from a display perspective, the Ativ S Neo is going to be positioned as the higher end Windows phone
It
in
is.
Sprint's
Mhm.
lineup. Right, and of course it's going to be more expensive too, by what, $50 or something like that. Yeah, $50. Whereas the HTC device with boom sound, which is a huge value add, is going to be the mid-range player, and that's why. Oh, it makes sense now. That's why this looks like an 8S, because it's playing the part of the 8S. Wait, when was the last time any of us looked at an HTC 8S? Are these ports the same on the front?
Hold on.
I'm doing a Google image search here right now. No. Okay, so the 8S does not have the lower port. The 8S has just the Windows Phone button, and there's nothing above it, but the stripe is the same and the upper grill is the same. So they've basically added a port to the lower one. And what's the resolution on the 8S?
It also, while you search, makes a little bit of sense to me, because these are the two new Windows phones on Sprint, and they obviously couldn't have had two flagships, so they're having something for everyone. You want a flagship, you go with the Samsung phone. You want you want a mid-range? Okay, it's not really a mid-ranger. It's a modestly spec'd phone. Then go with the HTC. So they have a wider palette of two.
I've confirmed that the 8S does have WVGA display, so it's the same panel. Well, that's sad. See, because
I'm not saying it's a deal breaker. I mean,
No, it's not.
WVGA it's still good, but it's a deal. It's a conceptual problem in 2013 towards the end, when we're talking almost standardization of 1080p displays. Of course, when it comes to Windows Phone, it's 720p, but WVGA is so HTC HD2.
Can I ask you guys a question?
And it shouldn't. You can, but it shouldn't be called the 8XT. This should be called the 8ST or something like that. I mean, that's what's been throwing me off. I'm sitting here looking at this thing. I'm like, wait, how am I such an idiot? Why didn't I realize this is just an 8S for Sprint instead of an 8X for Sprint? Because it's not named properly. That's crazy. Yeah. What's your question, Brandon?
Have you guys seen the Dell tablet commercials where they position it next to an iPad?
Oh, that's a Dell tablet?
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the Microsoft. Yeah, the total trash talking ones. Tony, do you know it?
Yeah.
No. It's great. You wait till you hear about it.
And there's a Siri voice that's narrating the whole thing,
Yeah.
and it's saying things like, "I can't do that, sir. I cannot do that," and it's maddening, because the first feature they show off that the iPad cannot do, but the Dell running Windows 8 can do, is zoom out on the home screen. And then the Siri voice says, "I cannot zoom out on my home screen." And I'm thinking, like, does anyone buy a tablet because they can zoom out on the home screen? What does that even mean?
Yeah, like it's a soft lead in. Like, Tony, they eventually do get to like more important stuff, like multitasking, running two apps side by
Oh,
side.
that is so time for an Anton Thanks article. So time for that.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, no, it's definitely a pretty cool, ad push. Whether you agree with it or not, I think you have to give them credit for being like, wow, they're just walking right up to him and slapping him in the face using Siri's voice, and it's a perfect reproduction of Siri's voice too. And that voice exists outside of the context of Siri. I forgot who's responsible for it, but yeah.
Actually, download that on any Mac computer. You can download Siri's voice, and you can use that for dictation and text-to-speech.
Can you?
So I can basically narrate your entire editorial with Siri's voice.
And well, Siri's voice has just recently got an upgrade too, to sound more natural in iOS 7, which I like. Have you used Siri in iOS 7, Brandon?
I have, and I switched it to the male voice just for fun. And I like the male voice better, because I think all voice assistants are female, and so why not switch it up a little? And so it's,
Yeah.
I still find Siri to be limited in its usefulness, and it's so funny, because one of the hallmark features of iOS 7 is that Siri now shows you how your voice fluctuates as you talk to it, because we all wanted that, because that was like...
We've got a live waveform. Well,
Yeah.
it's like the what's it called? It's like
the Google...
Yeah, it's like the Google thing, the pulsing heartbeat thing.
And on Windows Phone. it has those bars, those dotted bars at the top.
Every time I use voice command in Windows Phone, I want to just tear my eyes out with this phone. But I'm looking forward to that, actually, because I like voice interface, and I'm looking forward to the inevitable Microsoft overhaul of Windows Phone's voice interaction, because it needs it. Shall we move on to listener mail?
Please do.
Great. Let's see. Oh, you know what? I'd like to isolate that and use that as a notification sound. That's nice. It's like a little rattle in my smartphone. Moise Hussein writes in, actually almost over a month ago, we went through a bit of a backlog in our listener mail to kind of clear it out before the contest submissions. But Moise says, "Hey, Pocketnow, I've been listening for a while, and I've noticed you don't talk very much about the Asus Pad phone series. I've read Tony's review about the phone pad, but I was wondering why it is so that the pad phones aren't that big of a topic, and why it isn't even mentioned."
I talk about the pad phone every time I come home from Barcelona, and I'm saying that I'm always leaving with a want. I'm quoting myself, and I'm never ending up buying it because it's so damn expensive.
Yeah. The price point is a really big deal, but also isn't. Now, Tony, I know you still enjoy the concept of it, and
I'm about the only one on the team who loves it.
No, who loves it? Yes, I like it though, and I respect it. And I think one of my first editorials ever for Pocketnow was talking about how the concept would have been great 10 years ago, but today it's just with the cloud and all that kind of stuff, it's not really relevant anymore. I don't know. I would really like to hear from people. If you want to write in, if you've always wanted to write into the podcast and you have an Asus Pad phone, right? Yeah. And you have an Asus Pad phone, and I want to hear about your experience with it, because really, we see them at trade shows, and we, Tony, did you review one or no?
No, we didn't get a review unit, and we definitely didn't buy one.
Definitely.
Another problem with the pad phone.
We want to hear from you, listeners. Pad phone owners, we want to hear from you. Brandon, go ahead.
And another problem with the pad phone is that it's not released in the U.S., so there's not many people talking about it here.
Right. That is right. So you have price, you have kind of the practicality of the design, and then you have total unavailability in the country where most of the Pocketnow team is located. So, you know, it's not us dogging the product, Moise. It's just, you know, those factors work together to conspire to reduce our coverage on that device.
Hey, gents.
Yeah.
I need to drop off. I know we've got a couple more listener mails, but unfortunately I have to go.
Ooh, hard stop minimum 6 minutes early. This is going to be...
This is a hard stop to hard stop, man.
Yeah, man. This is like premature hard stop.
This is Inception.
Guys, you're getting too personal talking about all these situations.
All right, man. Brandon, great to have you on the show. As always, thank you for joining us for episode 050.
All right, cheerio.
Good
Take
day.
care.
Tony, what do you say? You want to field this last piece of listener mail with me?
Absolutely. I got all the time in the world.
Outstanding. I do not, so it's fortunate this is the last piece of listener mail.
Oh, go ahead. I'll just continue podcasting by myself.
This comes to us from Jamie Somerville. Hi, Pocketnow team, a listener from the UK. Big fan. Thank you, Jamie.
Cheers, mate.
I just wondered, outside of mobile tech, what operating system do you use on your desktop, laptop computers? Are you a Mac or a PC? Good question there, Jamie. And we'll get to the second part of his question in a second. I think, Tony, you and I are... oh, God.
Us and Taylor and Jaime, we are all Macs.
Yeah.
And then Joe, Adam Lane, Adam Dowd, and who else?
Well, Brandon kind of...
And Brandon,
wheels,
yeah.
Right? They're all
PC
Windows.
guys.
Yeah. Windows 8 or Windows 7 or XP or
So
in the
it's
case,
kind of a 50-50.
Yeah, or in the case of Stephen Shank, he runs like a Linux build or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But if he would run Windows, he would probably run Windows 3.11 for work.
Yeah, Windows for NT for networks. No, wait, what was that? Was that 4? Windows
4,
yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so that but this is a sore subject, right, Tony? Because do you want to? I don't want to bring this up if it's painful, but
no, because it's ongoing. The investigation, so we can't really talk about it. But yeah, I'm in pain now.
Yeah.
You guys, I'll tell you about my pain later.
Yeah. And speaking about things that, about 14 times an episode, I almost turn a moment into a Star Trek quote, and because I'm never on the air with people who will get it, I don't. But Jamie asks, Jamie says that I really love how you put Star Trek into your videos. Thank you, Jamie. You are the only one, and I appreciate it. I do it for you, because nobody else gets what the hell I'm doing. Jamie asks if I can talk about a couple of episodes of my favorite Star Trek episodes. Jamie, I'm not going to do that now because most of our audience would not dig it. However, I will shamelessly plug myself. I often guest on another podcast called The Ready Room from Trek FM. So if you are interested in listening to Star Trek talk, and particularly awesome Star Trek talk, then you should go over there. Trek.fm is the place to go. And there's the one and only time I have plugged Trek FM on the Pocketnow Weekly. But every time I'm over there, I'm like, oh, you can hear me on the Pocketnow Weekly podcast if you like cell phones. It's wonderful. So, Jamie, thank you for writing in, and really appreciate it. Sorry it took so long to get your piece of listener mail. But with that, we have an empty inbox. Finally, we're at inbox 0. I know. And the Pocketnow Weekly podcast inbox. And that is cleared out so that all your contest submissions can come in. Once again, you should check out the contest post, listeners, for your chance to win an LG Optimus G, gently used by our very own Brandon Miniman.
Listeners, about that inbox 0, you should really do something about that. I mean, Michael will be bored to death. Just send him some emails.
And thankfully, that hasn't been the problem. It's only been... It hasn't. No, we've had a flood of listener mail. We've had actually so much that I've had to hold a lot in the buffer because we change the guests every week. And I'll get a lot of emails that only you can answer or only Brandon can answer because they're talking about old school Pocketnow stuff or something. And I'm like, okay, got to hold this one, got to hold that one. But thankfully, we're at 0. So listen for the address in the end of the show. And before we actually get to the end of the show, Tony, do you have anything to lead us out with? Any exciting news coming up in your life?
I am looking forward to covering IFA in Berlin with you again. Yes. It's going to be last year all over. The interesting news is that I just came back from London and I'm already preparing to leave for Berlin, and who knows what else in between. So it's been an awesome year. I think ever since I'm covering mobile technology, this has been the most interesting and exciting year, at least for me.
Yeah, I certainly have only been covering it for a little over a year, so that holds true for me as well, sir. But I'm very, very, very excited to return to IFA and get ourselves some of that awesome bratwurst under the radio tower there, because that was awesome stuff.
Fernsehturm?
Fernsehturm, yeah. Hello, Fernsehturm. We're definitely going back to that TV tower. That's going to be great. Well, we will look forward to that. Fortunately, that doesn't come up till September, so we have some time to spend in our respective cities and countries, and a whole lot more mobile news coming up in the weeks ahead. But for now, that is going to do it for this episode of the Pocketnow Weekly. Hey, find us on Twitter. Brandon, who left early, is at Brandon Miniman. Anton is at Anton Dinoj. And ANTONDNAGY is how that's spelled, by the way. And you can always find me at Captain Two Phones, talking too much on the Twitters. You can also follow Pocketnow officially at Pocketnow on Twitter, as Pocketnow on Facebook and Google+. You can leave us a review on iTunes or Xbox Music, especially if you want to win that Optimus G. And if you have a topic, question, or suggestion for the podcast, or you just want to say hello, or if you just want to talk about Star Trek, you can email us and me at podcast@pocketnow.com. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye. Load my post.
What?
Load my post.
You take that back, and you take a more polite tone with me.
That's a funny thing to say.
That's a funny thing to say. I've never heard anyone say that.
I'm gonna tell my wife to load my post.
Get over here and load my post. Oh, that's
one day we'll have a podcast in either Romanian, Hungarian, German, Italian, Spanish, or French, and then I'm gonna laugh my ass off at you guys.